March 8th, 2019 marks International Women's Day, and I have the privilege of interviewing my friend, creator, showrunner of See Hear Love, Melinda Estabrooks. Thank you so much for chatting today on this very important day to mark.
Carolyn, it's so great to be here, especially as we celebrate women, which I love to celebrate and cheer on.
And the theme for this year's International Women's Day is balance for better. So I thought it would be great if we could talk about what you think that means in light of our Canadian media context, especially as a Christian communicator in media. What does balance for better mean for you?
Ooh, and I can be really honest, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so balance for better. So I will say that it's been a lifelong learning and exercise, like balancing being a new stepmom, being a showrunner, being a speaker, doing events, speaking at conferences, being a producer. I mean, it's a lot, and a wife. And I don't do it well all the time, but I think prioritizing, figuring out that I can't do it all and I have to ask for help. I think one of the best answers I've ever received was I was interviewing a young woman in St. Stephen, New Brunswick, and I said, can women do it all? Should they do it all? And she looked right at me, she said, no, but we can do it all together.
I love that.
And I was like, yes, because women always heap on that we have to be amazing, 150% of everything that we do. And then we don't do it, we fail, and there's shame and guilt, and then we're just like, see, I can't do it, I'm not a great wife, mom, friend. And when she said that to me, I was like, yes, we need each other to ensure that, you know, we can do everything and we can do it well.
That is such a challenge, working in this industry, especially where many women, I believe the stats that I've read online have said about 90% of women who work in the media industry in Canada face some sort of gender inequality or struggle for being a woman in this industry. Have you found that that's something you've encountered?
Yes. And I think being a woman, when I started off my career, I was young. So I was a young Filipino woman who came to Canada when I was 13 years old and really had to find my way. I mean, it was the first time when I came to Canada that I experienced racism, that I had gender discrimination. And especially when you live in Asia, when I grew up in the Philippines and Singapore, I never really experienced that. All my friends were from all over the world. We had women from North America come and speak at our churches and schools. So I always witnessed strong women and women that were able to do anything that they wanted to. When I came to Canada, it was interesting. It was the first time that I actually experienced, like, wait a second, because she's a woman, she wasn't allowed to, or because she was a woman, she wasn't at the table. And I remember as a young girl at 13, I'm like, I need to change that. And I knew that I had to, it's not the word fight, Carolyn, it was I had to work harder, be smarter, but also be more gracious and humble and pick my battles to get where I am today. And yeah, I've experienced that. I mean, I've had men, you know, be condescending to me, say snide remarks, you know, to me and about me because I was a woman, assume things, and when I'd walk into a room that I was the secretary and I was the one to write the notes when actually I was the president or the head of, this part of school. So I've definitely experienced that, and so I would be in that 90+%.
So how, when you have an experience like that, how does it, clearly it would be discouraging, so how do you work through those feelings in a positive way so that people who are also experiencing that have some tools to help equip them for when they face a situation?
So a couple of things. I was really blessed, honestly, to have an amazing mom and dad. And I say this to kids who I speak to or teenagers, work towards being great parents, that you're not gonna be perfect, but to have a dad who was like, honey, we will support you in anything that you want to do. And I'll be out there. I am, 4'10" and a half, and I was like, I'm gonna be the greatest basketball player. They're like, okay, and then whatever it is, honey, whatever it is. But my dad was like that, right? So I had parents that really believed in me, and I think from the beginning that was something that actually helped me kind of break through barriers. The second, I had a great church community, that a lot of girlfriends that really helped me when I was like questioning my own ability. They would speak, words of just life and encouragement to me. And then also my faith. I mean, I'm a follower of Jesus, and that, frames how I see myself. And I don't want it to sound cliche, because a lot of times I'll meet Christians, they said, yeah, this is who I am. But I really have had to work that out for years to really understand, what does that mean to be a daughter of God, to be loved, to, even in my failures, still be worthy to be at the table, still valued and a valuable, needed member of the community, and that I have a voice.
I want to ask you something that is a difficult thing to talk about, but you are a public speaker. You've had opportunities to speak at many different conferences. And something I've seen that we need to fix is something that I call the female ghetto when it comes to conferences, where we have many speakers, a lot of them men, and women are put on a panel just to talk about women's issues.
Yeah.
How do we address that?
Wow. Good question. So you mean that, so what you're saying is women are put into the panel to share their story, but they're never a keynote? Is that what you're saying in these kinds of discussions? Or
in certain situations, we've seen, say it's a conference, and you'll have many speakers, a lot of them mostly men, I would say, and you'll see the women's names marked against something that is just the women's panel to talk about an issue. And I think I've seen that in media, I've seen that in religious media as well. How do we, how do we address that?
I would say two things. Number one, I think it's going to take men to step out and say, you know what, I think a woman should be a keynote speaker. I believe that for equity and equality, it's going to take not just women's voices to be strong and movements, but it's going to take men and women together to get women where they are at conferences, that they are heads of boards, that they are CEOs of companies. I also think from a level, and I've been really thinking about this, Carolyn, about equipping young women, even through high school and university, to become great leaders. Equip them and train them and help them understand about confidence and courage, skills training, reframing and changing their thought patterns that they're not good enough or that they're an imposter. So, even from way back, I think that if we were able to, train, mentor women to think that they are valued and they have something to say, I think we actually would see in the next years to come women at those places.
You just spoke about mentorship. Who's been a mentor in your life that's really helped you advance both your professional and personal life?
I have some really great ones. Obviously, first, like I mentioned, my dad and mom. That's the starting place. And being adopted, as parents that adopted me, that's a beautiful picture of choosing and giving, what people would say as an orphan or an abandoned baby, an opportunity that I am so forever grateful for. In my beginning career, the former president of World Vision Canada, Dave Toyson, in my early 20s saw me and started mentoring me, started giving me leadership material, coming by every week to say, how are you doing? Is there anything I can help you with? Just really, casual, but, when the president of a large NGO sees that in you and then gives you resources, that's key. And then also, we're part of Crossroads. Lorna Dewick gave me so many opportunities, saw something in me, and gave me an opportunity to, join her show when I had no experience. And then with See Hear Love, when I said, hey, listen, I've got this great idea, she's like, let's risk together and do it. And I think that's the one thing why I love mentoring, doing what I do, because I have received so much mentoring and support from older people that saw the potential in me. I was very rough. I didn't have experience, but they saw the potential in me and said, we're going to give Melinda a chance. And that is why I'm here today.
And how do we encourage women to continue inspiring more women in media, especially in Christian media?
I think one of the things is a personal inventory of yourself. So for me, I have to look and say, okay, I don't want to be a jealous woman. I don't want to be hoarding all the gifts and opportunities that God has given me and other people. I need to be open-handed and offer those same opportunities to other women. So it's really thinking other-centered and not selfish. It's thinking not jealousy and sort of saying, this is my territory, I own this, and I don't want anybody else to come in.
And certainly when you've had success as a woman and you have your seat at the table, sometimes you can become very protective of that seat. So how do we work through that?
Yes, and I've seen that. And you know what, Carolyn, I've been like that because I've worked so hard and fought so hard to get to the table, to get to this place, and you want to protect it. It's like my territory. I've worked hard. That's not what it's about. And I've seen women, unfortunately, do that, and it's actually worked against them. because, women talk, they've become more jaded, they're not flexible, they're not open, the creativity is lessened. I think for me, I've had to really take a long, hard look to say, for me, it's like, God, you've given me these opportunities, presented these through people. Now, what can I do to give back? And I think at my age now and stage, I'm thinking already legacy. I'm thinking about, I've had all this opportunity. What can I leave or give to the next generation? And I hope, when I speak at conferences and I do my show, I'm always inspiring women, think about how you can give back to the next generation and to the next generation. Because that's what happened with me, and I see the benefit.
That's such an important message, because often women who are trailblazers, or I should say sometimes this can happen for women who are trailblazers, is that they do resent that it's easier for the next generation instead of celebrating that. So how do we respond to those sorts of feelings of feeling like I had to endure this?
Yeah.
And now the next generation benefits?
It's a good question. You're hitting my heart a little bit, because it is something that I sometimes have to work out every day. I mean, I have young millennial girls come in and are part of my team, and there are moments where, I'll be honest, they get an opportunity because they're younger, and I have this little maybe I should say that louder into the mic, in my heart, because I'm like, oh, that's such a great opportunity, and I wish. And then I'm like, whoa, you know what? I'm so glad that I'm a part of their story, that I've given them a platform where then they can speak and share their stories. And it is an ongoing thing. This is not as a woman who feel that I have worked very hard and fought really hard to get where I am. Yeah, it is a constant of thinking, okay, Melinda, it's a great opportunity that she got. You've gotten great opportunities. Let's together, encourage women, because that's what we need more in the world, and not women against each other.
So let's get really practical
for
a second. How do women approach situations where they do feel like they're being undervalued in their workplace?
As in how I would encourage them, or how I would encourage them if they're feeling undervalued? Well, it's happened, and I've heard women, say that in every workplace that I've been. I think as a woman, if someone comes to me and is discouraged or is angry, I feel that my role is to encourage and see the best and speak truths over them, speak truths about who they are. A lot of times when a woman is feeling undervalued, I'll take the time to just say, hey, listen, this is what I see. This is what I know about you. These are the good. Because I think for a lot of women, it's so easy, I think for anybody, to see the negative versus the positive. If you see a situation, immediately people will talk about the negative before they talk about the positive. And I want to change that. Like, why don't we change that and say every time we come to a situation, let's look at the positive and start there, and then look at the challenges. And so I think as a woman, my role, especially, in sort of my Gen X, age group, is to really see the best in everyone and speak that. I think sometimes we think it, but we don't say it. And I think that's powerful when we actually do say it to them.
And what can women do, especially those who are serving in a leadership capacity in a career, do for their spiritual life? And what are you doing that's working?
Well, I have a great husband, and I know that not everybody does have a partner that's like Chris, but I really have a great husband who speaks truth about me and about areas that aren't doing so well. So when I'm off balance, when I'm not focused on priorities, when family has become not the priority and work has, he calls it out. He's very honest about that. I think balance, it's tough. There are times where I've had to say no to things. There are things where there are good things. There are conferences that I've been asked to speak at. There are events I've been, asked to attend, and I had to say no. And for someone who's so FOMO, who freaks out about missing things, that has been a huge learning in the last year or two, to say, you know what, I can miss out on that because I need to be with family, or I can miss out on that because I need to actually rest and sleep, or just have some silence and not be with people, which is hard for an extrovert. But there are really hard choices so that you can be the best when you're doing the work that God has called you to do.
I think this idea of balance and having it all has really been a detriment
to
women who are in the workforce, especially. So how do we handle balance?
Yeah. For some women, I've said that, and I've asked them, they said they don't use the word balance. They said it's actually like a swear word. they'll say prioritizing. I think that we have to stop thinking and believing that we have to have it all together and that we have to do everything 100%. Now, in seasons, there may be times where your family, work may come a little busier and family, but I think, priorities, it's always, really like God and family and work. I really still believe in that. Like, what God should be first, your relationship with your husband, your kids, and then work. And I don't do it well, Carolyn, I don't. But I think that when I'm in a good community, I have a honest marriage. I think those are things that really have helped me kind of keep steady.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add to encourage our listeners today on International Women's Day?
Oh, I always say at the end of the show of See Her Love, as a sign off, you are seen, heard, and deeply loved by God. And the reason why that came up is because I've been speaking for over 20 years. And every time I'd speak at a conference or a university event or a teen conference or at a school, every time I would meet with women afterwards, there was always that part where I don't feel like I'm seen. I feel people don't see me and see the abilities I have. I don't feel them heard. I feel like my story isn't important. I don't feel my ideas are being listened to. And I don't feel loved. And it was sort of like in different ways, but they were all saying those same things, like being seen, heard, and loved were key core soul issues that I heard time and time again from women. And I think my encouragement is that you are seen and you are heard and loved by God, the one who created you, the one who loves you, the one who calls you beloved, the one who is a God of redemption and grace, because I have been the recipient of that, because I have not, had this perfect Christian life, but I've made a lot of mistakes and been the prodigal daughter and still making mistakes, but really know the love of God and the grace that he gives. And so that's my encouragement. That's my hope and story for anybody that's listening, man or woman, that you really are seen, heard, and loved deeply by God.
Thank you, Melinda, for coming in today.
Thanks, Carolyn.